Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Trekyards. He's Commander Cockings.
He is Captain Foley, and we are not broken pieces today. We're a unified front, doing our
Oh,
spoiler-filled review of episode 8. Almost at the end. Is it all coming together? Who on earth knows?
I really enjoyed this one. We got a lot of answers. We've got a lot of questions. But overall, it was a fairly action-packed, very good pacing. We're actually learned about backstory for Rios and a whole bunch of other stuff. So I really enjoyed this one actually. I had no real issues with it.
Yeah, no, so I would mirror a lot of that stuff. I think it's definitely in their top tier episode, but it
Mhm.
helps when it's both focused, interesting, actually has story, answers questions, and asks more questions. Like, it was what Star Trek's better at, but it's a good example of how you can produce a 54-minute whatever of interesting story, which is still just almost all of it people talking in rooms, which is what Star Trek is sort of best known for, as opposed to Discovery, where it's much more running around shooting. Like, something that's less exciting than watching Rios and Raffi talk on the floor about a really interesting topic they've been built up to. And I'm glad to see that they didn't fall into several traps they could have, especially with Seven of Nine, when she goes all Borg.
Yeah, the 7 and 9 stuff was great, and they could have definitely taken a wrong turn with that, but I think it played out very well. And some of the characters that I haven't really enjoyed or kind of been side characters really kind of stood out in this one for me, like such as Elnor. I kind of loved his character in this, kind of the naive little. He seems like he's 12 almost, but I absolutely love that about his character in this one. And Raffi, when she's sober and in Starfleet mode, I actually like her character.
Yep.
And it's great to see. So. Keep it up.
Worse than they did with Raffi is introduce her as what she was. Just cut out introduction scenes, introduce her as fresh, hey, I found you a crew captain, then she's fine. They really blundered on that. I know the actress said she loved playing that, but considering how quickly it was let go, I mean, this episode didn't feel dystopian. It didn't feel dramatic. Everyone was at least acting to a common objective, even Gerardi, who then, came back from the brink, as it were. So it felt way more appropriately tonal. And it certainly was quite satisfying, the hollow chat with the Admiral. And in fact, I liked her swear. Sometimes the swear can feel right. And the tease of seeing ships, sending you a task force, I can imagine that we might see them by the end having found them.
Fingers crossed. I mean, yeah, we got to see Rios's old ship, at least the top view of it. And
totally
a lot
the
of
Emmett Till, just a bit tweaked.
Yeah, exactly. I definitely thought it was the Emmett Till, or a refitted Sovereign class of some sort. But
it looks like a Discovery Sovereign hybrid, which is what Emmett Till was. And we've got an episode on that coming up where we do compare, see the differences, our differences.
And some good references, some good callbacks to canon. We got the Reliant mentioned, Picard serving as an ensign on the Reliant.
No, it's not the TMP Reliant. It's the Reliant that was commissioned after the Reliant was destroyed in TMP. He didn't survive. He wasn't on Khan's ship and survived. It was the next Reliant, which would have been more like. I know you wouldn't like that, but if it was the Reliant A, that would be a lot clearer in universe. Can I just say, we got a lot of things right.
We did.
Called a lot of stuff, but it was satisfyingly right because we made logical deductions and they paid off.
Anyway, so we got this 8-cluster star system thing with 8 stars, and we get more clarification on that later. A lot of people in my live last night were saying the Takan Empire from Last Outpost was able to move stars, so it could be them. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. We'll talk about that at some point.
That would be great.
Yeah, it's probably a whole episode on its own, so stay tuned. So this thing was created Raffi guessed 200,000 years ago. I think probably a little bit longer than that. So the Romulans saw this, they went there, and that's where the Zot Vash was basically formed. So you got this thing that gives you the visions, and
we said Katra.
Yep.
It's effectively the same thing.
I think it's all a misinterpretation. As Picard says later, all they have is fear. We have curiosity and understanding on our side, and fear generates whatever. So I kind of like that.
But it's cool to see the Romulan lady.
Ramda is back. Yeah.
Full explanation, satisfying explanation, makes sense. A little bit drastic, but makes sense.
Well, it mostly makes sense. She didn't go completely crazy
No.
and kill herself, but yeah, her and Narissa, I think is her name, the other Romulan lady, they are both there and see this vision, and one of them comes through it, no problem. Ramda's ripping her hair out, and later Ramda was on a Tal Shiar ship that the Borg assimilated, and because she was so distraught with what she had seen, she caused the submatrix collapse. I don't buy it.
If you break down what those memories are, they're like energy signatures from an ancient technology, which is a warning to the past. So therefore, the warning energy, in a sense, lives in her. So when the Borg assimilated that, it corrupted the thing because it's all connected and it's more technological than it's not just a cut from memory. It's more you know. So I can imagine it was the raw power of those memories that corrupted, especially since it's synthetic versus synthetic. So I can buy it as a bit more of a hokey thing.
One thing I really hate about those scenes, though,
Mm.
the flashback scenes, is you see an android that morphs into Data,
Mhm. Mhm.
which annoyed me to no end because Ramda recognized Soji as the destroyer. So it would have been cool to have a little glimpse of Soji in those
Yeah.
visions, perhaps. Data made no sense to tie in.
My assumption there is that they obviously know data exists, and so because they've been tracking data, so they didn't know about Soji yet. They didn't know about the ship that was found by whatever the other ship was called. So they saw the android that everyone knows about.
Why did Ramba recognize Soji though? Like that, I just was like that one glimpse of Soji. That's all it would have needed. Just boop.
Well, because she could tell she was a synthetic human based on other tells. It wasn't the face; it was what was behind the face. It got obviously way more confusing now. There's been other Sojis, other whatevers. They aren't
Oh,
made in
yeah.
pairs. It's this whole thing, and Maddox now feels less important because I don't necessarily imagine he in 14 years, 18 years built an entire society. Like this is kind of getting to a place that's a bit. Because I was assumed it would be like Sung or other Sung with the augments. It'd be like a little hidden, room inside a mountain, and it'd be like a classroom, and there'd be some people there. But implications the next time on is there's a little society there with lots of androids, and I guess yes, you could bulk build androids, but what is he going to churn out 1,000 androids for the sake of it? So I hope it's a very like small knit group, and
Yeah.
if we do get things like here's 9 Soji clones, here's 9 whatever clones, it'll just be Battlestar Galactica with the different versions of the Cylons. So they can't really do that. But I do like that first scene. It was good to get explanation straight away, a timeline. Later on we get confirmation that Admiral O or Commodore O is half Romulan, half Vulcan. Great, makes sense. Let's do both things. It's a good way out. Although it's weird how then she interacts with the other lady in the first episode that they're in because she's all like, "We need her help." It's like she's your superior officer. You don't need her help. You follow her orders. That now feels disingenuous. The entire scene.
Well, I thought it was interesting that Ramda was their auntie that took care of
Yeah,
her and Narek after the
that's cute.
parents died. Nice tie in there.
Mhm.
And the doctors say there's no medical reason for you to be in a coma still or
Mhm.
whatever. So I would have made a better Borg.
It's good.
Resistance is futile. So that was good to actually see her kind of care about somebody. I
Yep.
don't know if I totally bought it, but at the same time, it's like, okay, well, it gives her motivation to do the right thing that in her mind, which is get rid of these synths.
Well, she
So,
has been the entire time. I mean, the thing is, this motivation of this past synth uprising destruction event, that is genuine motivation. It isn't just Romulans made synths 3,000 years ago and they went rogue and then we killed everyone. This actually is a real motivation. Just like we've had the Iconians and all these really old races that we know nothing about except the hint of them. I mean, even the guys that built the Dyson Sphere. Like, people have incredible advanced technology back in the past. We've never really expanded on that, but they have. So to have a race that made these machines, and it gives the Jetbash a real reason to exist. And although it does then feel weird they let Data live for 27 years,
well, yeah, we talked about that on my first reaction video last night, and a lot of people said he wasn't advanced enough to justify this.
but they said
Now,
he was though in the
now that
episode.
they're synth organic, it's that next step, and
Yes.
that's the distinction. And I kind of buy that, but it also explains the line from the guy in the defector. There's a host of Romulan cyberneticists that would love to be this close to you, like kind of hinting at the fact that maybe they would love to be able to take you apart and see what makes you tick. Maybe that ties in a little bit more, but yeah.
Yeah, it's still it would because they do say at one point basically the same as Data. Yes, it would have been nice if they explicitly said once they look like us, Cylons, that's where the threat becomes because then you can't differentiate them
Hmm.
But although I do appreciate now the double justification of the Mars attack, it all feels a bit more logical and reasonable. Obviously, bad reasonable, but it wasn't to kill. Like those synths were never going to hurt anybody unless hacked. But it was the concept of them that they had to stop.
Well, let's move to this Elnor and Seven story, I guess. Love when she came to the rescue. I love when he hugged her because he was raised by strong female figures, and she comes in to save the day, and he just like latches onto her. Again, he feels like he's 12 in this with everything he does and says. He feels like a kid still, which he technically is. So I thought that was great.
Although we're not given an explanation of how she got on the ship.
No, none.
And the fact, although we did get the retcon, as it were, that he did go to Hugh's office, which is fine. Would have been nice if she said, I used the secret beaming, because it just seems really silly that she could warp in unnoticed,
Yeah.
beam in unnoticed, cross a border unnoticed. Okay, so I was hoping they were going to say they used some sort of Borg special beaming in ability, but then she could come and go as you want, which would be a whole thing. So they kind of dropped the ball there, but it wasn't important. It's just a bit of a plot hole. But the fact they didn't abuse the character is good. So I'll let him have that.
Yeah. And even the fact where she was considering, making a micro collective of sorts, and said, I might not want to let them go. They might not want to be let go. But, Elnor says, yeah, that sounds like a great idea. Do that thing. And she's like, assimilate them, take away it's like, it's kind of all over the road there, but okay. It was delivered not too bad.
It feels like someone read the blurb on the Borg and didn't actually watch Seven Ryan's episodes of the Borg, because that's not exactly how all that works. And she's very viscerally against it, but it doesn't feel quite right, because she has several times seen a mini collective, like on the Voyager planet. It's fine, actually helps them function because they need it. Lots of Borg opt for that. And I didn't understand I might not want to unborgify. It's like, yeah, you would. The power of controlling a few Borg isn't going to tempt you, because that's not who you are, when you can ask them nicely to follow you and they'll probably follow you. So that felt very wrong, misunderstanding the situation. The only thing I could imagine linking that in is that she's so desperate for help with the Fenris Rangers that she might see this as an army. Once she's feeling, I now have 8,000 troops, and we can go in and kill all the baddies that are trying to, defeat the Fenris Rangers. Yeah,
but I love seeing the things attached to her spine.
Yep.
She still has the metal spine. That was great. How painful that looked as well. Was really well done. So, yeah, there was a lot of good stuff about that. And I love how Elnor's like, are you going to assimilate me now? And that makes her like disconnect. Annika still has work to do. So that was fantastic.
And that entire scene was basically an anticlimax, but a satisfying anticlimax. I'll take all these Borg out of stasis. Oh wait, we killed the Borg.
Yeah, I was sad about that. I was rooting for the Borg. You actually feel bad for the Borg in this one.
Although
it's like, no.
Although actually Borg can survive vacuum because they did in First Contact.
Yes.
So they're all still, or at least most of them, still alive. Especially if they're still fully Borgified. And I can imagine that some would have like magnetic boots, and they could probably So there would be ways of saving them. Like they wouldn't just be dead. It's like, you do know, Seven, you have like 1,000 transporter emitters. You can just beam them all back. Because wouldn't that have been a great moment if the Roman lady, they all go out, we see the same scene, and then she's like, excellent, and then right next to them, like 10 Borg, full Borg makeup, beaming next to them, she's like, fuck. Again, still a little bit of misunderstanding. I mean, I guess you could retcon saying they pulled out all of the Borg's respiratory emitters in space just in case, so they could kill them with vacuum. I mean, I guess you could buy that. They pulled all, but would you go through manually 20,000 Borg and rip out their ability to do zero vacuum? I guess, because then you can kill them all. Emergency measure.
Well, I love how she didn't know the contingency plan. She's like, can we gas them? Can we electrocute them? Well, we can just open the things and let them out.
That was funny.
It's like, yeah.
Well, but this isn't her base. I mean, this isn't her assignment. She's only been on this ship for like 3 weeks and she hates it. But also definitely satisfying when the XBs rise up, thereby proving that Seven could just ask the Borg and they'll still help. You didn't need the drones. It's like, if it was that easy, why even use the drones? Why even pull out stasis? Because she pulled out stasis, they got flushed. But we had to get rid of the Borg threat. That was the, again, these are story reasons rather than necessarily logical reasons, because clearly they were good enough to win. But I'll give them massive credit though. We called them out for bad art design. I call them bad art design. But as soon as the green turned back on, you're like, yeah, boy, the Borg green is back.
That was fantastic. Yeah, absolutely. All right, I guess next up is Rios. I love the episode name, Broken Pieces. It applies to all these storylines. Seven, it applies to
Mm.
Rios, it applies to everything. It's great. But there's
Except
actually a
Raffi, who's
line.
actually fine.
Yeah. But it applies to a specific line that, look, I've got 5 pieces of Rios's broken whatever here. I thought that was great. That was my favorite scene in this whole episode was all 5 of them in the same room.
Hmm. It was
Um,
great. It was smart. It was fun. It didn't take the stupid extreme. It
yeah.
was a neat thing. And boy, that actor, he can play a scene with 4 of him, 5 of them in the same scene. That was a good scene.
So I really love that. I love seeing more of his backstory as well, seeing his captain, whose name I haven't written down yet, um, and seeing his ship. A lot of people were freaking out on my live last night talking about, have you talked about this uniform yet? I love that the Star Trek Online uniform is back, and I'm like, it's the same uniform we saw Picard and Raffi
We
in.
saw it last week. We saw it 3 weeks ago. We saw it 4 weeks ago.
Yeah.
No, it's just the one in between. It's fine. And what a nice reveal as well. Soji model of Cylon alien whatever being on
Mhm,
that ship.
mhm.
Although it's weird why there would be a small unknown ship with 2 synths coming out from an unknown planet, and surely Rios would
And being
know. Oh,
and
sorry.
being reported as first contact.
And they also
Yeah.
sent a signal, so they wanted to be known, and they're building their own ships now. And then if he was clearly close enough to the star system they're going to, he would have said the Vegas system. I was near there 14 years ago. Like, wouldn't you? Because they've been in the same release sector. I doubt they're going to warp 6 months just so they can't be seen. So that felt a bit weird. But I like the explanation of how she took the 30 years to get time to get weaseled in.
Yeah, so she was around in the security ranks when Data was doing his
Yes.
thing on
Yep.
TNG, and
But yeah, a lot of teasers for next week in terms of who's going to be there. It's got to be a Brent. That's got to be one of the end payoffs. Because they said Brent's in it some, so I can imagine they say, "Oh, I'm barely in it." Is that well? I'm in the first one. Oh, I'm barely in it, and you sort of lower your expectations, and suddenly when at the end, who greets them but Brent, Data, and Picard's like, "Oh my god!" Especially since this episode we have this weird scene with Soji and Picard saying, "Did you love him? He loved you." Like that feels
mm,
like such an emotional reminding you
mhm.
of who they were to each other, to then pay off that next week of oh my god, Mr. Data. Because I do think Maddox would rebuild a Data. I think that'd be the first thing he'd do. He wouldn't make a fresh one. He would, if he had parts of Data's engrams, he would make a new Data.
I think so too, and not only just because it's Data and he's kind of a friend to him now, but because to aid him in any future development of future synth tech.
Yeah, the
Uh,
Rio stuff was good, fine. I didn't like the guy commit suicide, but I guess he couldn't live with killing 2 android people.
since when? Since when does a phaser cause blood and brains to splatter all over a bulkhead? A phasers are pretty clean, unless it was set on projectile mode.
Well, in Star Trek 6, it did not cauterize and cause blood splatter.
Oh, but that was in Zero G.
Well, yeah, but I'm sure that the actual wound itself, because Gorkon still had a big ass wound that Bones had to, respirate, whatever. So clearly it could cause a woundy wound. But yeah, I mean, especially if the laser went through his brain, it would destroy the matter that yeah, I mean, they aren't guns, guys. But yeah, to see his own captain kill himself. And there must be something else there because I just don't buy he'd commit suicide over that.
Well, as Rio said, he pushed him. He pushed him kind of hard to get the answers, and I guess the directive from Starfleet and O was, if this has to be done, whatever. Maybe she mind melded him through the computer. I don't know. Um,
There must be more to that 'cause I just don't buy it. Federation captains are better than that. I mean, Janeway's done worse, has seen
it,
worse.
you can see that. I thought the same thing. I could see that playing out as episode of TNG. These people come aboard the Enterprise, and Picard gets a message from an admiral or whatever saying, "Oh, this is a threat. You have to kill them." He wouldn't be like, "Okay." He'd be like, "Why?" And then he would go like deep into it and try to find out what's going
So
on,
I guess
right?
you're saying he was a weak enough captain to do it in the first place, which then justifies how he was weak enough to commit suicide.
Maybe,
But that
maybe.
doesn't work because he was one of the best of us. It's like
I
no,
know they
no,
always are, aren't they?
yeah, that if you use it every time, it devalues it. So please stop using that. Um, he should have said something more like, "Oh, I knew him, terrible poker player."
Yeah,
That's all he needed, you know. Um,
yeah.
yeah. Any other? Durati. What do you think about payoff for Durati? And we do get the reason why the EMH didn't tell
Yeah.
anybody because he didn't feel he had to at the time, even though he could have.
Anyway, yeah. At least it was brought up.
Yep.
Um, no, I think it's great, especially the way Picard confronts her as soon as she wakes up. You know,
Mm.
when you arrive at Deep Space 12, you're going to turn yourself into the authorities for the murder of Bruce Maddox.
Mm-hmm.
And she goes through and tells him everything that happened. The only issue I had with the Girardi in this one was that they left her alone in sickbay with Soji.
Yes, logic would dictate don't do that.
Yeah, even though Soji can take care of herself, but still, you know.
Well,
Anyway, that back and forth between her and Soji was actually quite good. Where you were ordered to kill me too, I won't give you the opportunity. I would never take it. Not again. I'm glad she said that line because until she said not again, I was like, you killed your mentor and your lover. Why would you not kill a perfect stranger who's not even real? you know. But when she said not again, I kind of get it. I thought that was a good inclusion to add that in. So
I think the Girardi stuff was the weakest stuff of the episode. But that it was quite a high bar, so that's just the case. It was the least interesting stuff for me because while she acted it well, her story's over, and so I'm kind of watching the epilogue, and you're like, okay, there's more interesting stuff that's happening elsewhere, and she again flips back very quickly. Just because Soji looks like a girl and can sleep doesn't mean she's going to kill everyone.
when she drinks when she's thirsty too, don't you know?
Yeah, so I don't really buy that she would be that blinded. Now if she was saying, I like the fact she has mental block, she can't talk about the events. Good cop out. I like it. It would have been better if they'd added to that saying, but the longer I go from the memories, the less vivid they are in my brain, and I can't feel them as much. So therefore, the further away from that event, she's more sympathetic because she can't. That would have been how I could buy it. But I mean, surely she killed her own boyfriend in cold blood, graphically in front of him, without even giving him painkillers. So I don't really. It didn't feel quite. It felt like, oh, we had to get past it. It felt a bit too easy. But then, who really cares? You know, do we really care about Jurati? No, not really. She's there. Moving on. So
I wonder if her character's going to actually sacrifice herself before the end of the season because I don't see her being able to maintain a place with the crew for season
she'll
2.
probably stay on the planet. She'll say, oh, I want to repent for everything I did with Maddox. I want to stay and help.
Possibly.
She's the second best in the galaxy, and also, you know, already wanted for crimes. So if the planet can protect her, then yeah, she'll just stay there and help them.
And I guess the last thing is just the very last thing in the episode is Narek following them into the transwarp corridor. How did that happen? How did he know to wait there for them specifically? Kind of bugged me a little bit. I kind of figured that maybe the stuff in Girardi got, now that she's up and about, is kind of, she didn't get it all, perhaps. So maybe he did track him. Or maybe Soji has a tracker on her because he was sleeping with her. So
that's, yeah, a good redundancy. Although you thought you were going to kill her, so it's not. So I didn't have much of a problem with that because he was cloaked. My assumption is that...
At least he was cloaked this episode.
Yes, which means he should have been cloaked last episode, but whatever. Just makes that one even more dumb, especially since... Anyway, whatever. My assumption is that Narek is meant to be a very smart guy, and so as soon as he loses the signal, he starts thinking, and he cloaks, and then he's like, well, where's the nearest starbase? Starbase 12. I'll start on that route. Long-range scans. Oh, I picked up the warp trail. I'll find them again. I mean, you know, they weren't really rushing around, like, especially if they just go straight to Starbase 12 in a straight line, like.
Well, yeah, I gotta think they went to Nepenthe first and stuff, which he didn't know about. So
long range scans are pretty effective, and I can imagine. Yeah, so I'm not too worried about that. But yeah, it was weird. It was right there. Although I like the transwarp almost looks right. Although I don't like the fact that we saw that warp tunnel from the edge. It was just warp, and the engines had blue trailing effect, which is not right. But it looks just like Discovery. When Discovery shuttles go to warp, they have trails, which is wrong. But I mean, everything warp in here is Discovery-esque. Like, even they warp out and warp in. But I mean, whatever. That's their style now. There's actually a story here, Stuart, with characters, a crew, although again, Picard not very in this, except like 2 scenes.
But he's good in the scenes he's in. He's Picard.
He is, but by God, they should not have named it Star Trek Picard. It was a very, very bad. Having now watched it, it's not about him. It's not for him. It's not because of him, really. He is just there.
That's a great jumping off point for saying, what do you think it should have been called? Put it in the comments below. Let us know what you thought about this episode. And be sure to tune in tonight at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for our live. Lives are a great way to help the channel and also get your voice heard. So we also break this down scene by scene and talk about every little kind of thing in minutia. So if you can join us for that, please do. It's a great way to help the channel, as I said. Also, joining the channel is another great way. Or Patreon. You can go to Patreon/Trekyards. It's another monthly service, much like joining channels. They're like two separate things, but they all help out in the end. And any help you can give us would be great. We have PayPal as well. All that information is down below. So if you can help us anyway, like that, just check it out.
And of course, the support you're giving us allows us to make the incredible amount of content we do each week during these big new season times. I mean, we've worked flat out over the last 8 weeks for content, dozens of videos. So hopefully you guys enjoyed them, and do check out those videos, because the best way to support that, if you can't support financially, is by viewing the videos, sharing them, liking, commenting. Those things help the analytics. And of course, subscribe if you haven't already, click the bell notification, because that is the most important thing now. Thanks, YouTube. And just keep tuning in, because we want to make content for you more, and we're pretty proud of the detail we go into. So yeah,
that's right. So until next time, guys, I'm Captain Foley.
I'm Connor Kungs.
See ya.
Bye, guys.